Hey everyone, it is Mike, the Dad Nerd here, and today we're going to be talking about another one of my favorite Docker containers, and it's really tied to, the last video I made, which you guys had a lot of comments on. I really appreciated all the feedback. That video was on my favorite Docker container, which is iCloud PD, and that is a Docker container that can pull all of your photos directly from iCloud and store them and back them up onto your server. So the secondary part to that is I needed an application that would allow me to go in and view those photos in a meaningful way. And essentially what I was looking for was kind of a drop-in replacement for something like Google Photos or iCloud Photos for the photos that are sitting on my server and not in the cloud. And that is where I have played with a lot of different Docker containers that are trying to do this. But my favorite one so far is actually a newer one that is under heavy development, but that is doing a fantastic job of really listening to the community on what everyone wants, implementing changes, and like I said, under active development. And that project is called Immich. So Immich, if you go to their website, they claim they're a self-hosted backup solution for photos and videos on mobile devices. And they do a great job at that. So really, Immich for me is a great way to access, view, and manage photos that are sitting on my server. And what you get with it is not only an ability to view, but to look at things like the metadata. So looking at the map of where all your photos were taken, to look at things like facial identification. So you can look at your photos and limit them down and search for them via certain individuals. So it will do face detection. You can tell the system who those faces are, and you can search by those individuals. It also gives you things like memories, just like you would get in Google Photos. So it's a fantastic application that you can self-host on your own server. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through the installation process for getting Immich up and running on Unraid specifically. And then we will jump into a demo site. I do like how Immich has their own demo site of a full functioning Immich installation that we can play with and kind of show you some of the things. And I will talk about some of the things I love about Immich, some of the limitations if you're using iCloud PD, and then also some suggestions that I really hope to implement in the future. So first though, we need to get the system up and running. So let's jump over to Unraid and get this installed. Once we're over in Unraid, there are going to be 3 separate Docker containers that we need to install to get Immich working. Luckily, all 3 of those can be installed through community applications through the App Store on Unraid. So let's go ahead and search. The first one we're going to do is we need a Postgres database. So Postgres, and we want either 14 or 15. I use 14, so we're going to go there for Postgres SQL 14, and you are going to click the install button. I already have it installed, so install is not here, but once you click the install button, we'll fill out the variables. Those variables are going to look a lot like this. So what you're going to have is you're going to need to enter your Postgres password, you're going to enter a username, and then give the database an actual name. And the storage path should be automatically filled in for you, but you want that likely in your app data folder on Unraid. So generate a password for yourself that you're going to remember. We're going to use that same password later. Generate yourself a username. Again, write that down. We're going to use it later when we install Immich. And give your Immich database a name. I recommend just calling it Immich for simplicity. And then click Apply and let that Docker container spin up. Going back to the App Store now, the second item that we need, the second Docker container is called Redis. So search for REDIS for Redis, and you're going to find this version right here. I already have it installed. And you're going to click the Install button, and then we'll look at filling in the variables here. Which you can see for Redis, the variables are extremely simple. It is simply a port. So long as that port is not used by any other Docker container on your system, this container is as easy as clicking install, which is great. So let's click the install button, and we'll just note that the port we're using is 6379. So of course, the final Docker container we need is Immich. So let's go ahead and do a search for Immich. We're going to pull in the main repository here, and we will click install. And now we're taken to the variable page for what we're going to plug in for the Docker container for Immich. The web UI, same thing as the last time. So long as 8089 is not used by any other Docker container, you can set it to 8089. For the path for the photos, this is where Immich is going to store the photos that are uploaded via the Immich UI. So an important thing to note here, this is for new photos that are going to be uploaded maybe via the Immich app through the Immich web container. This is not the path if you are using something like iCloud PD, or if you already have photos stored somewhere else on your system. This is not where we plug in that path. So this, I recommend creating a new share. I created a new share in Unraid called Immich Photos, and that is where I am telling it to store all the new photos. We will get down to the other folders on your system here in just a second, but this is where all new photos are going to be stored. It is also where it will store certain things like renderings of like transcoded videos or thumbnails or anything like that. So just make sure that you have enough space wherever you're putting it for all of your new photos and your thumbnails and all of that data. Going down to the machine learning path, I created a path in my app data folder for the machine learning. So again, I went into my app data, I created a folder called Immich ML, and that is where I am starting my machine learning. I think really the important thing here is to put this on something that has enough storage, but is also fast storage. So this is on an NVMe drive for me. You could have it there or on an SSD as well. This path to import, this is now where we are plugging in where all of our current photos are stored on Unraid. For me, I have a share called Photos. That is where, if you guys watch that iCloud PD Docker video, that is where that Docker container is pulling in my wife and I's iCloud photos and storing. It's also where, you know, if, for example, when we got our wedding photos a few years ago, I uploaded those to this photo share just in a separate folder. It's kind of where we dump all of our photos onto the server. So this import path, that is where you want to map your existing folders that contain photos on your server. The next one down is DB hostname. So this is for the database. So you want to put in the IP address of the essentially the server where that Postgres Docker container is stored. So if you followed this tutorial, it's likely on the same server, right? You already installed it. So for me, my Unraid IP address is 10.0.1.50. This will just depend on whatever server IP address your server has. So just make sure you do plug in the correct IP address. Under the DB username, this is where you're going to plug in the username that you created when you were setting up Postgres. Same thing with the DB password. That's where you type in your password. DB name, if you followed my naming convention, it's just called Immich. But if you created a different name for that database when we were setting up Postgres, make sure to put that name in there as well. Now we're getting down into the Redis settings, and these are pretty easy. When you put in your Redis host name, it's going to be, again, the same IP address that you installed it on. So for me, I'm installed it on Unraid, so it's sitting on the same machine. So it's 10.0.1.50 for me. So just plug in your IP address there. And there's no password for Redis the way we installed it. So you don't have to worry about any password. It's just really telling it the IP address of where it can find the Redis Docker container. These other variables, you really don't need to touch. I do want machine learning on, so that's left to false. I want type sense also to be on, so that's set for false. If you changed your Postgres port or your Redis port when we were setting up those Docker containers, make sure you update either the DB port or the Redis port. If you left them as the standard ports, these should be okay to use. Again, we didn't set a Redis password, so you can leave that blank, and you can leave the rest of the settings as is. You'll notice that I did add in an extra variable called NVIDIA. I've been trying to get my GTX 1060, which is the GPU in my server, to work with Immich. I haven't been successful yet. I've kind of been working with them in their forums and on the GitHub to see what I'm doing wrong. I've tried a lot of different ways in Unraid to get the GPU in. Now, if you are running a GPU, if you're not running a discrete GPU, if you're running QuickSync through your Intel, that is shown to work. I am not using the QuickSync. I'm on an AMD system, so I'm trying to get an NVIDIA card working, and I haven't been able to do that yet. So I'll do an update to this if I ever do get that working. But for right now, you could ignore this NVIDIA setting because it's not working. So I always like to go back in one more time, just make sure everything is set as you would like, that you filled out all the variables. And once you do, you can click apply and it's going to start spinning up the Immich Docker container. With all of that set, now it's time to jump into the Immich UI. I have found that you do want to give it a few minutes to initially spin up. If you try to go to the website right away, it won't be available. So give it a minute or two, let it run through its initial startup and spin up. And then the easiest way to find the address is to simply click on the Immich icon and click on Web UI to be taken right into the Web UI, where you will enter your admin email address and password for the first time. So for that account, enter whatever you would like, and then you will be logged into the system. Like I said earlier, I love that Immich gives us a demo site to actually go out, look, and use. For privacy concerns, this makes it so I don't have to show you my personal library, which is fantastic. But when you first get into Immich, you likely won't have any photos because you haven't uploaded anything yet. And even if you set that import path for using some folder on your server that has photos, we haven't told Immich to do anything with those yet. So this will likely be blank. But this is a good demo site that shows kind of what the UI will look like when you do end up having photos. You have your overall photo timeline, which I really do love this timeline feature over here along the right. As you go down to explore, this is where you will see all the different all the different faces in all your photos, and you can go in and tag certain individuals. That way you can search by their name later. It'll also organize it by place. So it uses the metadata in the photo to know where that photo was taken, so you can search via places. And again, you can even use the map feature to see on a map where all your photos were taken. And as you zoom in, you'll see it starts to expand. I love this feature. But what I want to show you first is how to get that import folder working with Immich. You have told the Docker container that you have a folder of photos sitting on your server, and you need to tell it that is what you want to go import. So there's a few things we need to do. If you remember when we set up the Docker container, the internal path in Immich for that we mapped it to was /import. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to go enable the external path, the import folder, and then we need to create a new library for those photos. So 2 steps here. What you're going to do is you're going to click on administration. You're going to find your main account, and you're going to click on the pencil icon. And you'll see this option for external path. What you're going to do here, if you follow the directions so far, is you're going to do /import, and you're going to confirm that. That will tell the system that your user is allowed to go and use that mapping to those photos to create a new library. So that's the first step, is adding /import to the external path. The second step of this is actually going in and creating a new library with that external folder. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on your name, you're going to click on account settings, and you're going to go to library. And what you're going to do is you're going to create an external library. Okay, so it makes sense on their demo site that I actually can't create an external library on their account. So I've switched over real quick to my instance of Immich just to show you this part. So again, I clicked on my name, I clicked on my account settings, and I've gone down to library. You'll see I've already created a new external library. But what you want to do is you'll say create external library. You will click on these 3 dots, and you will edit the import path. And you're going to add a path, and you're going to type in the same thing, /import. And you're going to click add. So now what you can do is you can click on the 3 dots again, and you can go to rescan all library files. What this will start to do is it will start to go through that entire folder, and it will start to index all of the photos in whatever folder you map to /import. It'll start to generate thumbnails for you so it can view nicely in the web UI. It will transcode any videos based off your transcoding settings, and it will also start to detect faces, detect objects, and do all of that analysis on that folder. Now, what I will say is this process can take a very long time depending on how large your library is, and it will also use, essentially, especially if it's transcoding video, it will pretty much peg whatever CPU cores you gave this Docker container. So the first piece of advice is be patient. For me, this took a couple days. You can see from mine that I have about 776 gigabytes of photos in that folder. And again, it took a few days to kind of churn through all of that, and especially with the transcoding of the video, that's why it took a little bit of time. You will start to notice that the photos start to appear in your timeline, but if all of them aren't showing up, then just be patient. And one way you can actually check on all those jobs, you can go to administration, and if you click on jobs over here on the left side, you can see all the different processes that are running. And so it's generating thumbnails, it's extracting metadata, it's doing some object tagging, It's encoding, it's recognizing faces. You'll likely have some transcoding videos. So go to this jobs tab, will show you everything that's running on your server so you can get a general idea with the number counter how long it is going to take. My second piece of advice is actually to go in the initial setup, and you can bump this up later, but I would actually limit the CPU cores that you give to Immich just for your initial run. If you are going to be pulling in a lot of photos right off the bat, I would limit it. And this is especially important if you have other important things that are running on your server. If you give Immich access by default, you give all your Dockers access to all of your CPU cores, it's going to peg that out. And I just noticed that it created some issues with Plex and other things were a little bit laggy. So here's how you can solve that. If we go back and we edit the Immich container, and then you up here in the top right-hand corner, if you switch this to advanced view, one thing you can do is CPU pinning. So you can see here that I have 6 cores, hyper-threaded, up to 12. What I did was I gave it 3 cores and their hyper-threaded cores, so technically 6. So I just checkmarked these 6 and left these off. This means that when Immich is pegging those cores, at least my 0, 1, and 2 core are left free for other services. So that is really it for getting Immich installed on your Unraid machine. You now have your system up and running, and it is now pulling from your existing folder of photos and analyzing them. Now, a few things about this. So number one is when you use an external library, meaning how we set this up now is we are referencing that other folder. Immich itself cannot edit that folder. Right now, the way it's built is it is read only. So if you have been kind of following along with me and you've kind of done things the same way, I have iCloud PD Docker container that pulls from iCloud every night. It put those photos into my photos folder. I have then set that as my import folder in Immich. So Immich now can see that folder and see all those photos, and it's great. It works great for memories, and it's awesome for being able to scroll through those on the web or in the app. But the one thing it cannot do is it cannot go in and delete. So if you're trying to clean up your library and you're trying to do it this way, that is not yet a feature. I did put in a request on GitHub because I do think if it was an opt-in feature, I do think it's good that in the beginning it's read-only. That way you're not able to go in and destroy those old folders that you don't want to. But if you were able to opt in and say, I want to use Immich to manage all of those folders that already exist on my server, I think that would be a great benefit. So if you do want to manage your photos with Immich, if you want the ability to delete and organize and move those files around, you will actually want to use the upload feature from the Immich mobile app or through the website. And so on the website, if you're going to upload, it's pretty easy. There is an upload button in the top right-hand corner, and you can start to upload your photos. Now, when you're uploading photos, again, this is going to go into the default library, and that is a different folder. You remember when we set up Immich, we set up where we want new photos to go. That is where whenever you upload through the website or you upload through your iPhone app or your Android app, that is where those photos are going to be stored. And that folder, that library can be modified. So this is really kind of a pro and a con, and it's not really a con because I bet they will come out with the ability in the future. But it's just something to keep in mind when you're setting Immich up on how you want to go about this. It's actually made me rethink that instead of using iCloud PD, maybe I do end up using my phone to upload all of my photos to Immich. But real quick, I do want to show you what this looks like on the iOS app and how you would go about setting up automatic uploads and automatic backups from your phone. And to Immich's credit, this is really what they were designing this backup solution to be for, is automatic backup from your phone, getting those photos from your phone to your server. So this is probably more the primary intent of this app, whereas I've been kind of using it as a background to kind of view photos that I'm pulling into my server from a different means. But let's go ahead and jump into the iOS app, and I can show you quickly how to set up the automatic upload. So as we look at the Immich iOS app, you'll notice that the interface is extremely similar to that of the website, which is great. So right now, then, we really want to focus on how do we turn on the automatic upload feature in the app. And to do that, you're going to click on the cloud icon with the up arrow in the top right-hand corner. And this is where we get all of our backup information and settings. The default for your backup albums is going to be, you can see it says selected recents, which is all. You could also click select on backup albums, and you can pick to backup only certain albums if you wish. You might not want to upload your entire iCloud library, maybe only certain albums. So as it goes down, it'll tell you the total amount of assets that are in what you selected, how much it's backed up, the remainder of what needs to be backed up. And then these bottom two settings are really important. It is to turn on the foreground backup. So that means that automatic backup will occur when you have the Immich app actually open and you're looking at the app. The other option for automatic background backup, that is to turn the service on when the app is running in the background. So you will want to turn that background service on. So if we turn that on, you actually get an extra option, which is only while charging. So if you click that, that'll mean that when it's in the background, it'll only do the upload when it's charging. Presumably you are at home on Wi-Fi when that is occurring. If you don't want that on, then you can turn that off. So foreground and background, depending on your needs, I would typically turn both of those on so that I know that I don't need to open the Immich app for that automatic background upload to occur. After that, it's as simple as clicking the Start Backup button, and that's it. You will be automatically uploading your photos from your iOS app to your server. Well, there it is. So that is Immich. I hope you guys find this app useful. I hope this tutorial has helped you get it up and going on your Unraid server. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video, those thumbs up really do help. And if you like these types of videos, self-hosting, Unraid, Docker containers, smart home, whatever it might be, hit that sub button. We've been gone for a few years, but we're back now. We're going strong. Really appreciate you guys' support. Hope to catch you guys in the next video, but until then, tech on.